Hello everybody, my name is Megan and welcome to the 20 questions tag. Yeah, my name is Megan, welcome to my channel. Hope you're having a good time here. My window is open because it's warm. Yes, I'm wearing a cardigan. Let's not talk about it, so apologies if there are sounds from the outside. I'm not closing it because I hate editing Megan. You know, I just want to make things terrible for her. So yeah, this is the 20 questions tag. I was tagged by the lovely Chloe, the persistent bookworm. I will link her down below. I don't know who created this. I think it was like a written tag, so everything will be linked down below and the questions will also be down there. So should we just jump in? So question number 1 is, how many books is too many books in a series? You know, I'm gonna have the exact same answer as Chloe and Becca and everyone for this, in that it really depends. You know, I love a good duology. I like a standalone, I like a trilogy, love a good quartet. Sometimes big fantasy series do need like those 7, 8, 10 books. I will say that the Morganville Vampires books, there did not need to be 15 of them. But yeah, whatever the story warrants. So, no concrete answer for you there. Sorry. The next question is, how do you feel about cliffhangers? Now, I feel like this is a controversial opinion, but I quite like cliffhangers. I have the terrible habit of not reading a book until the next book is already out. So I'm very rarely left waiting too much or stressing too much about a cliffhanger at the end of the book. But from like a marketing and like authorial perspective, I understand. If you have a book coming out in a year, you want to leave people like, oh my god, what has just happened? So that they definitely pick up your book when it comes out next year. Like, I get it, I'm not mad about it because it helps me remember more of what happened in the book previously. So yeah, I like a good cliffhanger. I think if a book with a sequel ends without a cliffhanger, then like, I'm gonna be like, okay, well that story is concluded. Why are you bringing out a sequel? It's not necessary. So yeah, I think cliffhangers are necessary and I quite like them. Question 3 is, hardback or paperback? I definitely prefer a hardcover for like display purposes. I only would prefer a paperback if it was floppy. If usually a US paperback or Orbit is a company in the UK that tends to do quite floppy books. I hate a stiff paperback. It's not a pleasant reading experience. I don't like it. I don't mind reading hardcovers. A lot of people don't like it, but I mean, just as long as the dust jacket stays on the shelf, fine with reading hardcovers. So yeah, I prefer a hardcover in almost all circumstances, and if I'm going to get a paperback, I would really prefer it to be floppy. Question number 4 is, your favourite book? I really didn't know what to pick first. I had 2 answers that jumped into my head immediately, so I've grabbed those. So we have Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor, and we have The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. These are quite different, but they're both fantastical, so that's definitely my favourite genre. So Strange the Dreamer is about a guy called Laszlo Strange who is an orphan, who was raised in a library and who is obsessed with a lost city that people call Weep. He doesn't, because he doesn't like that name. And one day a delegation from the lost city come to the town that Laszlo lives in, and his adventure unfolds from there. And it's so beautifully written, and I love Laszlo so much, and I love the rest of the characters, and yeah, it's excellent. It's so good. It's a duology. Muse of Nightmares is also excellent. It's not a 5-star for me. I think Laini Taylor's endings can be a little bit weak, but this book stood at perfection. I love it so much. I understand it's not everyone's cup of tea. I get it, but personally, I love it. I love it with my whole heart. And then we have The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, which is a retelling of the Trojan War from the perspective of Patroclus and Achilles, and it's like achingly romantic, also beautifully written, and you know, I love it. I read this when I was 15 and I've thought about it like a lot since then, and I really want to reread it soon, but I know it's gonna hurt me. And then question number 5 is, your least favourite book? God, really should have thought this through. What is my least favourite book? Let me check Goodreads for like some 1 stars. So Summer I Tend Pretty by Jenny Han, which I might be giving another go because I just watched the TV show and I really liked it, but like I gave it 1 star. Like I hated it when I read it. Yeah, I was doing Camp America. I was like 18, so it was a good 8 years ago. Jeez. Yeah. We have Requiem, which is book 3 in the Delirium series by Lauren Oliver. I remember like hating this ending, being like, I suffered through an entire trilogy for this. Okay, and the last one I'm going to mention is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, which was just so gratuitous and unnecessary and boring, and I just can't believe I read the whole thing. Like, I should have just stopped reading. You know, that would have been better for me as a person than just suffering moving swiftly on from that, we have question number 6, love triangles. Love them or hate them. I'm quite ambivalent towards love triangles. If it's done well, I love it. If it's done badly, I hate it. It's a trope, much like any other, that it's not a trope I hate. It's not one that if I see it in a synopsis, I'm like, oh no thank you. You know, like accidental pregnancy or like secret baby, like they're not tropes that I will gravitate towards. Like love triangle, I'm fine with, and it's been done well in several books I've read and enjoyed, so quite happy for it to continue to be a thing. It's a staple for a reason. Question number 7 is the most recent book you just couldn't finish. Again, I'm gonna have to open up Goodreads because I have a put down for now and a DNF like shelf. So I know the last book I put down for now was definitely Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, which I didn't tell you what any of my least favourite books were about. You know what, I don't want to talk about them anymore. But Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell I've put down not because I wasn't enjoying it. I started listening to it on a plane and I wasn't vibing with the audiobook and the plane as an environment, you know, and then I came home from my holiday and the book is this big, like it's so chunky, and I just didn't have the time or the mental capacity to like dedicate towards it when I wasn't, you know, just off work for 2 weeks just vibing. So eventually I will pick that up again and give myself sort of time to read it, but today is not that day. And like DNF, the last book I've like decided I'm just not gonna finish, is Forest of a Thousand Lanterns by Julie C. Dow, and this is a retelling of the Evil Queen story from Snow White but with an Asian spin on the mythology, and I just not a huge fan of like villain stories. It's just not my particular cup of tea. I enjoyed Vicious by V.E. Schwab and I didn't hate And Were Amended by Alex E. Harrow, but it's in general not something I gravitate towards. I'm a really basic ass bitch and I like stories about, you know, the heroic people. Question number 8 is a book that you are currently reading. Now for that, I very excitingly have a copy of Babel by R.F. Kuang, which I got early at Yelp at the beginning of July. I'm currently like 120 pages into it. It's the only book I'm currently reading because I sort of started to slump at the end of July. July was a weird month for reading. But yeah, I am slowly reading this and annotating it and will definitely have it read by R.F. Kuang's tour for Babel, which is at the end of August. Babel is about a guy called Robin who was brought from Canton to England and is raised by a professor as his ward. He's taught Greek, Latin, continues learning Mandarin, and eventually starts at Oxford in the translation studies section, which is in the Tower of Babel or Babel, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And it's a critique of imperialism. It's got some cool magic based on translation and silver, and so far it's excellent and I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. So yeah, that's what I'm currently reading. Question number 9 is the last book you recommended to somebody. I suppose I could grab this one. So I am part of Becca from Becca and the Books' Patreon, and I recently recommended her Gideon the Ninth because she was talking about necromancy and she was saying, oh, maybe I'll pick up so and so for this prompt, because she has one on her TBR. But I was like, Gideon the Ninth is excellent now. And then a couple more people in the chat were talking about how Gideon the Ninth is excellent, and Gideon the Ninth really is excellent. I understand it's not for everybody. I know Chloe, who tagged me in this, hated this book, but you know, she can be wrong about things. So I don't know how to explain this book, so I'm just going to read the tiny little bit off the back, and if you want to know more then you can read the summary online. But I think this is all you really need to know. The Emperor needs necromancers. The 9th necromancer needs a swordswoman. Gideon has a sword, some dirty magazines, and no more time for undead nonsense. And Charles Strauss said, lesbian necromancers explore a haunted Gothic palace in space. Decadent nobles vie to serve the deathless Emperor. Skeletons. And look at the cover. It's excellent. I love it. And I recommended it recently, and I'm now recommending it to you. To all of you. It's not for everyone, but it's worth giving it a go. Next is Oldest Book You Have Read by Publication Date. I don't know what this is going to be. I have read a couple of classics. I've like dipped my toes in the water, so like let's do Red. I'm pretty sure you can organise by publication date, or you can do publication year. I think that's probably good enough. Okay, well Goodreads is lying to me because The Future of Power was definitely not it. It's obviously giving me the editions. Oh, my battery's dying. What? No. Okay, well that gives me time to find out whether Shakespeare was published prior to like Jane Austen or the Brontes or, you know, Mary Shelley. We'll figure it out. Okay, I am back. I did you know, scroll through my Goodreads, but honestly I don't really think I need to look into it too much. Shakespeare was obviously written in like the late 1500s. Jane Austen, Mary Shelley, Bram Stoker, they were all like 18th century onwards, I want to say, like minimum. Like Mary Shelley was what, 1819 for Frankenstein, 1818. Jane Austen was like 1790s perhaps. Either way, 1500s definitely the earliest, and I've read like maybe like 20% of the Iliad. It doesn't really count. Oh, when was Machiavelli writing? Bear with. Okay, so actually I think it's probably The Prince by, oh, what about Thomas Hobbes? No. Okay, so I've read a lot of political philosophy because I did a degree in international relations and had a major focus on political philosophy, and the Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli was like early 1500s, and Shakespeare was late 1500s, so yeah, The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli, which is not a read I would recommend to people unless you have an interest in political philosophy, in which case, yeah, it's very interesting. It's The Prince. It's, you know, Machiavellian. I'm sure you've heard of him, and I think that's all I want to say on the matter. Next is the newest book you've read by publication date. I have been reading some arcs recently, so I think it was These Twisted Bonds by Lexi Ryan. Let me double check. Yeah, well, it came out in July, but I read it before it came out, so like, yay me. So that came out on the 19th of July 2022, which is like 2 weeks ago, so not too bad. I've started Babel, which comes out in the 1st of September 2022, but haven't finished it, so I don't think it counts. So These Twisted Bonds is a sequel to These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan, which is a fae romance about a human who is tricked into entering the fae world because her sister gets kidnapped and she wants to save her. Not kidnapped, she gets sold into slavery, which is worse. And yeah, it was a fun duology. Recommend it if you're sort of still excited about sort of YA fantasy. It's like, you know, tropey and predictable, but it's fun and I enjoyed it. Question number 12 is favourite author. Now, I've already mentioned books by Laini Taylor and Madeline Miller, so I won't mention them. I will say that Alexi Harrow is also a favourite author, and I love her writing style. She's 100% an author by author for me. I love everything of hers that I've read, including the short story she wrote about like death, and I cannot wait for her next published book. So yeah, Alexi Harrow, definitely a favourite author, and you know, just remember that Laini Taylor and Madeline Miller are definitely included in this. Question number 13 is buying books or borrowing books. Now, I don't know if you can see that there are at least 3 shelves behind me. There are actually 4 in the room and books just scattered other places. Buying books is definitely the way to go on this one. I do borrow a lot of books. I borrow a lot of audiobooks from my library, but I just really like owning books. They bring me joy. So yeah, buying. Definitely. The last book that you disliked that everyone seemed to love is question 14. I wouldn't say I disliked it, but Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff I did not love as much as everyone else. It was like a solid 2.5, 3 star, but I just don't have the same love for J. Kristoff that a lot of other people seem to. I love the Illumicrate edition of it. It's stunning. I'm keeping it forever. But yeah, I think the world building was like, you know, it was lazy. And I think the only thing keeping me going was that like I could understand the character motivations, so like the intrigue was there. It's just I didn't love the execution. Like the writing style is not necessarily for me, and the world building pissed me off, if I'm going to be honest. Okay, next question is bookmarks or dog ear. 100% bookmarks. In fact, let me show you my new favourite bookmark. Okay, so I hope you saw the foiling in all its beauty. This is one of Becca and the Books' Patreon bookmarks, and I'm obsessed with it. I think it's so beautiful. So yeah, definitely bookmarks. If you borrow my book and dog ear it, we're going to have a problem. Question number 16 is a book that you could always reread. For this, the answer is basically any romance book. I'm like always 100% down to reread a romance, but particularly You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogle is one of my favourites, and Beach Read by Emily Henry is another go-to. The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, again, I love to reread romances. But yeah, You Deserve Each Other is about a couple, Nicholas and Naomi, who are engaged, but the spark has sort of vanished from their relationship and now they're just kind of pissing each other off, and Naomi decides to do it on purpose so that Nicholas calls off the wedding and she is not on the hook for any of the financial repercussions of calling off the wedding. And it's like second chance romance. It has my whole heart. I love Nicholas and Naomi so much, and I need more people to read this, please and thank you. Question number 17 is, can you read while hearing music? I can, but it needs to be music I know really well, or instrumental music. So I can listen to like Hosier, like the Hosier album, and the self-titled one. It's a good go-to for me. I love Alan Menken instrumental music. I like putting that on. Like the lo-fi hip-hop beats playlist on YouTube, always a good time. But if there are words, I will get too distracted by those words and get pulled into that and just stop paying attention to what I'm reading, and that's never a good thing. Question number 18 is one POV or multiple POVs. I mean, I prefer a multi-POV story, but sometimes it does work better to just have the one POV and then be like completely taken aback and blown away by the reveals at the end, dependent on the kind of story. So I think I'm gonna say it depends, which is very unsatisfying, but in general I prefer multi-POV, but a single POV can be just as satisfying depending on the skill of the author. Question number 19 is, do you read a book in one sitting or over multiple days? I used to always read a book in one sitting. Now I'm an adult and I have responsibilities and I don't have the time to do that, but I love when I can find the time and can just power through something. It's like the best feeling. So yeah, I would prefer to be able to power through things in one sitting. Unfortunately, I can't do that anymore, so it definitely takes me multiple days to read books. And the final question, number 20, is who do you tag? So whoever wants to do this. I feel like I've seen the majority of the people who I know enjoy doing tags do this already, so if you have not done this and you want to, please go ahead, feel free. I hope you enjoy. But yeah, that is about it from me today. I'm gonna go put away the books that I've just taken off my shelf, and I will catch up with you in my next video, which will hopefully be coming out soon. Bye.